Okay, then example is it says that we don't we look at the noun. So he gives example of Khalifa. Khalifa, even though it has ta marbuta, it's a masculine noun because it refers to male human beings. قتلت خليفة الوزيرة. So can you tell me why is قتل masculine even though it's al Khalifa too? Farhana, you want to tell me? She probably hasn't joined yet. You want to tell me,
It's
Sudais?
a male third person, so that's why it's the verb also agrees with it. In terms, it's singular and third person.
Okay, that's fine. That's good. Also, it tells you that senuna and is a plural of sanatun is considered broken plural for argument purposes. Now, what happens if the verb is not placed before the subject? What about if the verb is placed after the object? Does anybody know what happens?
Then it must agree in terms of the number and as well as gender.
Okay. Does it make sense, everybody?
So the first thing I didn't get it. Why Khalifa is that feminine?
Oh, why is qatala?
Yeah.
So you think al khalifatu is feminine?
No, sir. It's male.
It's male, right?
Yeah.
So what's the question?
Okay. Got it, sir.
You got it, yes?
Yes, got it.
Because chapter 2 we mentioned that sometimes if you have ta marbuta, there are few exceptions. When the exception is when the noun means a male human being. So al khalifa is caliph are normally all, well, not normally, they're always masculine. So in Islam, like the first four caliphs, they, we don't have a female khalifa in Islam, so that's why it's masculine in meaning. So meaning overrides the form here. So do you understand, Farhana, what does it mean when Sadeh said that if the subject is placed before the verb and the verb comes after, the verb must agree with
Yes, sir.
the number and gender?
Yes, sir. That I got it.
You got it, yes.
Yes.
So for example, here the subject is olad, the boys or the children. Because it comes first, al oladu, the verb comes after. It can no longer be singular. It has to agree with the subject, with the gender and number. The clear difference here is obviously the verb is coming after, not before. If it comes before, it's always singular. If it comes after, it matches in terms of number as well. So it's almost, if you translate it literally, it means the boys, them open the door. The boys, them open the door. So obviously that's how in Arabic we say it. Obviously when you translate it, we say the boys open the door. Does that make sense? The same way, it's not al-banatu dakhalat, it's al-banatu dakhalna. Because when the verb comes after, it must agree with the subject in terms of number as well. Because
But what is the recommended way of starting the sentence, with the verb or
the verb
after the object?
The verb.
Start with the verb, right?
Yes. So the next one is what's the difference when we start with the verb or the noun? The difference is that when you start with the verb, the sentence is known as verbal sentence. It's called jumlatun fa'liyah. Jumlatun fa'liyatun. It's a verbal sentence. If it starts with a noun, if it starts with, like, for example, kharaj al-waladu, it's known as the verbal sentence. If it starts with the subject, if it starts with the noun, then it's called jumlatun ismiya. Even though verb comes after in the sentence, but in Arabic we call it the nominal sentence. Okay, that's the difference. So, for example, al-waladul Al-waladu kharaja, even the verb is here, this is considered nominal sentence because if you look at it, the boy is the subject, and kharaja, you could say okay, you say the subject is the boy, and if you do it literally, it means the boy, he opened the door. So here the boy would be the subject, and the verb in it, the complete meaning of the verb would be the predicate. But obviously the he, you don't need to use it. So you just delete it, it means the boy opened the door. Does it make sense?
But I just want to know, why is the author explaining this if it is not recommended to use?
Say it again.
Why is the author explaining this if it is not recommended to use? Actually, where will we find this type of sentence when the verb will be following actually if it is not recommended?
So when you become very fluent in Arabic, you could obviously for beginner it recommends that you start with the verb first, but sometimes it's done for various reasons. For example, in Surah Al-Fatiha, it says "Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in." So here the subject it's not even subject. Okay, that's not a good example. But the way it works is if you put sometimes you put the subject first to emphasize the point. I think it'll probably come later.
Okay.
So for example, here, it's gonna come. Let's just wait a second. It's gonna come in point B. The normal. So he explains here the normal sentence order in Arabic is for the verb in singular to come first. The question of when, so that's question you asked, when the third person plural verb is used arises. There are three situations in which it is required. So there are three situations where not it's not when you put it first.
It will be nominal sentence. Yeah, it will be nominal.
So he is giving examples of when we need to use when we shouldn't use singular, when we use dual or plural, depending on the context. So for example, he says if the subject is mentioned first and if it's mentioned by name, so if you said rijalu, and then you mention the verb after, it's gonna become agree, zahabu, the man went. It says the subject may be placed first. I think that's can sort of answer your question. For stress or emphasis. So for example, لما وصلت البنات الأولاد خرجوا, which means when the girls arrived, the boys went out. So here he wants to emphasize the boys. So he's kind of put it before خرجوا.
Sentence here has two subjects like banatu and oladu, isn't it?
So the al-banat is the subject of wasalat, and olad is the subject of haraju.
So that means in single sentence we are getting two subjects and two verbs.
Yes, but there has to be two verbs for it to be two subjects.
Okay.
So another scenario is that if the subject is already mentioned in the preceding sentence, then we also match in terms of not mentioned. For example, here it says wasalat banatu, the girls arrived. Well, it's like a new sentence, right? Now the fact that the girls have been mentioned before, it's like when you talk in English, we say the man was here. And then we don't say, oh, the man fixed the car. We just say the man was here and he fixed the car. Or the ladies were here and they cooked for example, or they ate the food, or something like that. So when normally the same in Arabic. So when the verb is mentioned, when the subject is mentioned separately, then when you say wa and, like a new sentence, we just use the verb, and the subject is hidden inside. So here wasalatil banatu, the women, the girls arrived. Wa jalasna fil fasli. Jalasa means to sit. So wala jalasna. So it's a third person feminine plural. So and sat, or you can say and they, literally it means and they sat. So the girls arrived and they sat down. Fil fasli. Fasl means class. So in the class. Does it make sense?
Yeah, same like English, actually, right?
Yes, very similar to English, yes. So for example, one mistake I've seen quite a few people make in the last exercise is a similar concept we should have applied, but what the mistake they made was it was, I think, the deaf stood up or something like that. Here I wrote, they are me, Hassan has,
Number 6 is that one.
yeah, okay. So number 6, he says the deaf stood up in the meeting and said. So people wrote, so it would be, people wrote wakafa, the deaf, people missed that lam as well, to be honest, but I didn't. Aturshu, wakafa aturshu, the deaf stood up, plural, right? Wa, now, Farhana, why is it going to be? Wa,
Khala.
so here, are we talking about one deaf person stood up, or many deaf people stood up? Turshu is plural, right?
Plural, yeah.
So if 10 deaf people got up, and if you say qala waqala, because now the subject is not going to be mentioned afterwards, if you say waqala, what does that mean?
Become singular then.
No, what does that mean?
Wakhala means he said.
He
And
said.
he said.
But is that what we want to say? Is that what we're saying?
So it is they said, yeah, because
yeah, they
plural.
said.
Okay.
Yes, plural. So they said. So it's waqalu. Because deaf people stood up, the plural. So they said waqalu. No, fatahiyya. Waqalu. Nahnu. Another clue that is plural is, it says nahnu. We. He didn't say I, ana. He said nahnu. And nahnu as'adu as'adu minkum. As'adu minkum. Okay. So similar thing was applied there. Okay, so he says the perfect, which is the past tense, may be translated as the historic past or the past perfect. So historic past is wasala. So when you say wasala, it means he arrived. So when you say he arrived in English, it means at some point in the past. But if you say, but it also can mean he has arrived. So if somebody calls you, is talking about has Fatima arrived? You go, yes, she has arrived. Or someone says, where is Fatima? You say she has arrived. It means like recently, just now, like 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago. But if you just say he arrived, it would just mean, there's no limit, like could be much earlier than that. It could be, if you say, for example, England won the football World Cup, it's different from saying England have won the football World Cup. So one is like past tense, which is called, I think is known as historic past, and one is recent past, which is known as past perfect. And he says you have to use the context and common sense normally to know what it means. Because, for example, in the sentence, if you're translating to say, they asked him, has Fatima arrived? And then, when he answers, what would it be? She. So if somebody asks you,
has just arrived.
Yes.
She has just arrived.
She has arrived. You don't need to judge just, but she has arrived, right?
Yeah.
And what we say is that, there's a particle in Arabic which is qad. So if you put that before the verb, it becomes the perfect verb, which means, you're going to translate it as has or have. So one is telling you, whether you translate it as he arrived or he has arrived, right? He's telling you look at the context. You could translate it as both. But he's saying if you put qad before the verb, it becomes this one only, he has arrived. So if you say qad wasala, qad, you put it before verb, it would mean he has arrived. It can't mean he arrived. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So he says qad wasala, he has arrived, not he arrived. So he so he also says that qad also may refer to pluperfect. So these terms obviously I never learned them in my life until I started learning Arabic. So pluperfect is basically means, when you're talking in the past, then you're talking within the past, but it's a further past. For example, if you say, I thought, so you're talking about this is past tense. So you say, I thought I had passed, but I find that I failed. So it's past, but you're talking about, you're thinking in the past about the further past. I don't know if it makes sense, because it's something that comes with practice. So the more you practice, because even in English we don't really distinguish between these as much. Okay, so the vocabulary is fahima, to understand. So here the ain has kasra. Qawlun means speech. Tala'a means to rise. For example, the sunrise, or it could mean ascend. So or it could mean go out. So again, guys need to know all the three meanings and apply it according to the concept. Gharaba means to set. When you talk, for example, the sunset or the moonset. Qamarun means moon. Qasada means to intend, or it could mean to travel towards. Sa'ihun, this is Hamza here, Sa'ihun means a traveler or a tourist. Nazala means to descend, which means alight, stay at a place. So nazala, like to come down. So for example, if Juma, the Khatib climbs the mimbar, when he comes down, you can say Nazal al-Amiru. The Amir, the Imam descended, like he came down. Ma'un means water. Khamrun, this if you don't have the physical book, which probably most of you don't, is khamrun. Mentioned in the Quran, right? It means wine. This specific type of wine which is made from grapes normally. Haushun. courtyard, enclosure. It means courtyard. Naharun means day or daytime. Saydun means hunt or hunting. Qabila is verb to means to accept or receive. Dayfun means guest. Duyufun means guests, plural, broken plural. Kasara means to break. Kubayatun means glass. So it's like a drinking glass. So the glass you're drinking, plural is kubayatun. Feminine sign, sign plural. Ba'asa means to send. And now some of these verbs come in Quran quite a lot. Falahun, falahuna means falahuna is a sign plural. It means is peasant or cultivator. Hakimun, hukamun, it means governor or ruler. Ba'uda, and to be distant from. So it's basically when the verb comes and it gives you the preposition in brackets, it means you normally use the preposition when you want to say the English from the bracket. So if you want to say to be distant from, you use an. Nahwa means towards, in the direction of, or about. Nisfun means half. Ghaniyun means rich. Its broken plural is aghniya'u. Fariha means to rejoice. Sabiyun means a youth. Its broken plural is sabiyanun. Ta'amun means food. So aklun means food. Ta'amun means also food. Jalasa means to sit. Zahara means to appear. Shariba means to drink. Laylun means night, or plural is layalin. Laylatun means night, singular. So laylun is like you could, if you want to say singular, you use laylatun normally. Laylun generally means night. Mawdu'un, subject. Mawadi is broken plural. There are two plurals. We got broken plural. Mawadi'u or mawdu'atun. It means subject or matter. Is anybody using Anki Web, the Anki app? Nobody's using it?
I'm using it.
Yeah, we are using, but the problem is, the
Yes.
same words are repeating very often. Actually, we are, until we get the new word, it takes quite a long. Actually.
Exactly.
So I think it's because when you first start, it come often. Like the first time you done it, you may come after a couple of days, or then it may come after 5 days. But if you do it a few times, that will start coming after 2 months, after 6 months, after 8 months, like that. Or I think you could change the settings as well to see how often they're repeated.
Yeah,
But if you,
maybe. Yeah, we have to look
Yeah.
into that.
But if you stick to it, like then your work, the ones you weaker at, they will repeat it more often, and you'll get strong at it. This is not just a method I've come across. This is method. If you go on YouTube, you find many medical students, for example, and who have people who go to like Oxford and all these universities. They use these to pass their medical exams. They find it's scientifically proven method, repetition and. So that's why I've personally used it a lot. I've stopped using it recently, but I've benefited lots from it. Anybody else using it? I would say please keep using it. Don't worry if the words are repeated. That if you do it consistently, it'll be repeated less often. Bakhtiar, do you use it?
Yes, I use.
Okay.
Yes, I use.
Sades, do you use it?
My system could not get it through. I just sent you the pictures. It was not working. It was just showing 45 words, and beyond that, it was nothing. Like, I don't know.
Do you use phone as well, or do you just use it? Okay.
No, I could not get into my phone.
Okay. But that means that you have to still memorize the words properly in a different way. Have you tried troubleshooting?
Yeah, I tried. It's not working. I don't know.
Okay. That's fine. Okay. Okay, let's do a question. Exercise 21. Number 1 is كتبت المكتوبة. What does that mean? Somebody quickly.
Do you write al maktuba? Maktuba is maktab is a letter.
Letter. Did you write the letter? Yes.
Letter, right? Did you write the letter? Yeah.
Yes. لا ما كتبت المكتوبة. What does that mean?
I did not write the letters.
No, no, I did not write the letter, right?
Yeah.
So we done ma before. So ma, when it comes before a past tense, it means not. هل فهمتم قولنا? So
Did you understand what we said?
yeah. نعم فهمنا قولكم. Yes, we understood what you said, right? Your speech.
Yeah.
Okay, this okay. قصد الشمس. Okay,
If
so
I have to say, I did not understand. La ma fahamna. If I say I did not understand, I would say la ma fahamna.
Yes, لا ما فهمنا. نعم ما فهمنا. We didn't understand. Yes.
That would be la.
For singular, it's ma faham faham.
فهمتوا ما فهمتوا not فهم. So we need to be, yeah, we need to be, when you remember the word, we need to know if he has a kasra on the second root letter or the fatha. Here is kasra. So ما فهمتوا, I didn't understand.
Okay.
Yeah. Number 7.
Ma means what? Actually? Sorry, ma means what? Can you tell? La is no. Ma means
Not. But that's ma can also mean what as well. But ma when you use with the
ma is what?
Yes, but when you use
Like ma ismuka, they say ma ismuka, what is your name?
Yes.
So here ma is not. Huh?
Yes, when they're used with the past tense verb, before that it means not. We covered that in one of the previous lessons in detail. So ma, if you put ma before a past tense verb, it means not. So ma fahimtuka, I didn't understand you. Ma fahimna, we didn't understand. Okay. Number 7, كسد الشام السائح وخادمه ودخل المدينة. Okay, somebody want to explain this? Sadais, you want to have a go?
Yeah, but I forgot what does kasata means.
So it could mean to intend or travel towards.
Okay, to travel. He traveled to Sham, that is Syria,
Yes.
and Asayo is the subject, so it is to be.
Okay, so you guys see here, interesting is subject, it came before the object. Okay, so it's possible, right? I think it's just telling you it's possible. So object sometimes can come first, but obviously you look at the sign. So he has fatha, object has a fatha, right? So it's accusative, and the subject is nominative. So we know the subject is sa'ihu, which means the tourist. The tourist traveled towards.
The tourist and his servant, they arrived at Syria and وَدَخَلَ الْمَدِينَة, and they entered the city.
Okay, yes. So here, obviously, wa khadimuhu, again, these are connected. So the tourist and his servant traveled towards Sham, towards Syria, and they entered the city. See, here is so when you say them two, right? Dakhala, and them two enter the city. So because what would happen if you say wa dakhala madinata? What would happen if you say if you just say wa dakhala madinata? What's the difference?
That means he entered, and it's dakhala, that means them two entered.
Yes. So if you said dakhala, it would just mean one of them entered. But here, obviously, both of them entered. So it's dakhala, because here the subject is not mentioned afterwards. So the verb must agree with the number of people it's talking about. So here talking about dual. And you know, when you're translating from English into Arabic, now we're using them too. I keep saying them too. This is to emphasize the dual. But however, if you read this in English into Arabic, if it was English question and you translate to the Arabic, you may say the tourist and his servant traveled towards Sham and they entered the city. Even so, it says they. From the context, you should know that it's them too. So you still use the dual. It's not plural. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we should mention in the bracket that this is about them too, or it's not necessary.
I think it's not necessary because yes, because in English, when talking about English, when if you want to say something like that, we say, oh, the tourist and his servant went traveled towards Syria, and we said and they entered the city. So what I'm trying to say is that when we read it in English, if they use the word they, we have to look at the context, we have to look at the question and say, okay, is he talking about two people or is he talking about more plural? It normally is plural unless you have a clue in the sentence which indicates it's talking about two people. What's the clue in this sentence? What's the clue in this sentence?
It's over here, dakhala, the alif in the end of the verb is telling about two people.
Yeah,
And
so
there are two people mentioned, like the tourist with his servant.
yeah. So طلع الرجال الجبل ونزلوا. Burhan,
Yes.
you want to translate number 9?
Tala al, I don't remember the meaning of Tala al.
To ascend.
Oh, Tala al, just now we, okay. Tala al rijalu. To ascend. The rijal, the man ascended the mountain. Nazalu. And Nazalu, I don't remember. Nazalu.
Descend.
Okay, and descended. Okay. The man ascended the mountain and descended.
Okay. So in another way, you could say the man went up the mountain, they came down. If you want to say it like in a different English, like, but literally it means that. So why is Nazalu here is plural, singular, Tala? Tell me why Tala is singular here and plural here. Explain to me.
Because the
Sorry,
verb is-
let Burhan explain. Sorry, his answer to the question. Burhan, you want to explain? I want to see if you understand.
Sorry, Rijalu.
Why is Tala singular? And why is Nazalu plural? Why can't you say wa nazala?
I don't, Tala alu, it will be difficult. I think there is no word, something like that.
So first explain why is Tala singular?
Yeah, Tala'a is like Kataba, Dakhala, like similar to past singular.
No, what I'm saying is why is this? Why don't we say? Why don't we say Tala or Rijalu? Why don't we say that?
Verb is usually the general form of verb is the third person singular, I think, and this is a verbal sentence.
Okay, so it's singular. The verb is normally singular. What's the condition for the verb to be singular?
Past and
No.
past.
When if I say to you, Burhan, okay, I don't know Arabic. Tell me when I use a singular verb, what are you gonna say? When the verb comes first, when the verb comes before the subject.
Yes,
it
will be singular.
Always singular. So here is why is it singular? Your answer should be it's because it comes before the subject.
Okay.
That should be the answer. Nothing else. That should be that's what I'm looking for. And why is this plural here?
Yeah, because after singular, the word would be singular, but it can change depending upon plural. Previously, as Nazir was explaining, the Rajulu, it can be Rajulu, it can be singular, it can be plural or male, female, depends.
No, I don't think you answered my question. Why is Nazalu plural? Why is anyone Nazala?
Okay, now
So-
because
so-
this is, yeah, Nazalu, because, yeah, because this doesn't have the same, it is coming after the subject.
Yes. So because there's no subject of, it's not, you know, we said it's only going to be singular when the subject is mentioned afterwards. There's no subject
Yes.
mentioned afterwards. So
Yes,
it
okay.
must match with the subject with the terms of
Correct.
number. Because if you just say tala ar-rijalu, if you say
Hmm.
tala ar-rijalu,
Al-Jabala.
okay, just
Hmm.
okay, wa nazala. Okay, you could write 1 second. Let's make it full sentence. Okay. Tala rajulu al-jibala wa nazala. So what's the how would you translate this?
The Rijal, the people ascended, and only
the mountain?
Rijala, the one person descended.
Yes, and was a nazala, he descended, yes. So obviously here we don't want to say that. The context, we want to say they all. So we say nazalu, okay?
Exactly.
So here you must, here question 12, it says, Akasartuma, did you two break the glass of water? You must say, oh, here subject mentioned separately. It's not mentioned separately. This is anti and huki is just mentioned for emphasis. Because we mentioned before that you can't use ana, nah, like these, you can't use it as subject. So when here they mentioned, these are not the subject of the verb, because if they were subject, then the verb would be singular. The verb is not singular, verb is dual, because the subject isn't mentioned afterwards. When he says anti here afterwards, it is just for emphasis. It's not a subject. Does that make sense?
Okay.
The reason is because of anti. Anti can't be used because we said these, because anti would be hidden, right? Because if we said if the subject is not, if subject is a pronoun, it's always hidden inside. So here anti just mentioned afterwards for emphasis. So number, have you written your letters to your friends today? Yes, we have written them and put them on the big table. So Nazir, you want to do number 1?
Yes. Have you written your letters to your friends today? Have you written? Katabu. Katabu. The letters is Maktabu.
Sorry, say that again. Katabu.
Katabu. Katabu. Have you written? Katabu. Katabu.
Oh, we need to learn the verb properly. This is a big mistake in verb. Like